A classic is classic, not because it conforms to certain structural rules or fits certain definitions, of which its author had quite probably never heard of. It is classic because of a certain eternal and irrepressible freshness. When you reach an anniversary like this, a quarter of a century of a decorating firm, it's natural to wonder, how did you make it this far? 2 or 3 major recessions, many times when people seemingly are not interested in decoration and still you progress. We love tradition in my office, but we think of tradition as an active voice, not a passive voice or a dead voice. So just because something is traditional doesn't mean that it's flat and boring and regressive. It just means it's part of a continuum. We sort of led that early historicism. They called us the Neo-Georgians. What's so fascinating about American decoration is it's so many things. Even in New York City, there's 97 nationalities living in one city. So what each of those populations thinks is decoration is different. In short, decoration can be anything. And in fact, that's the genius of it. The genius of American decoration is that you can pretty much decorate your house any way you want, and people will be accepting of that. And the other idea, which is really derivative of France and England and America, is the idea of comfort, which really started in the 18th century, of making rooms that were soft and easily arranged. And Americans have embraced that and perfected it. And I always think it's a lot like American sportswear. America pioneered the idea of having attractive tailored clothes that were athletic and fluid. And American decoration at its best is like that. It's like really beautifully made casual clothes. They're not sloppy, they are well-fitting, they're flattering, and they're functional. I always have a few things that I look for in a well-decorated American room. It's about comfortable places to sit, places to put a drink. And then if you really want to look smart, it should have an object of focus, something that resonates with you. Like it could be a work of art or an heirloom or even something you found at a flea market that you think is wonderful and you want to look at. And that might be the focus of the room and thought around its arrangement. But when I was at Parrish Hadley, I realized that there was rarely a room that didn't have a work of art in it. And sometimes they were of terrific quality, and sometimes they were just a sketch or a drawing or even the child's drawing that had been preserved. But it's pretty hard to make a really nice room without some work of art. I love the idea of what is finished and what is not. And being an historian and also a decorator and trying to bring projects to completion and what is completion always fascinate me. And I sometimes counsel my clients that you want to be 90% complete, but you always need room for additions and evolution. And also that it can't be so fixed that if something moves, it all falls apart. The idea of what is finished carries over to how we scheme whole houses. I always like to say that whatever looks good in one room should look good in another, and that it should all be able to rotate around. And that plays up to that unfinished impromptu nature that maybe a chair from the library could look good in the living room, or the dining chairs could be pressed into service for a party in the sunroom. You know, the whole idea of interplay, and there's a harmony to it. And I think part of our success is that our interiors have personality and a handmade quality about them, that they're personal. We rarely just go and buy a bunch of new stuff at a store and arrange it in a room and call it decoration. It's usually much more thoughtful and holistic. I think that we were part of a trend to go back and look at historic models and re-employ them. And now that taste is more universal, but what we brought to the table is how to make these things. We can make almost anything. So every one of our interiors has at least one thing that's bespoke, that is personal to it. And I think that is core to a successful room. And it might mean a set of ready-made curtains that we have tailored to fit the window, or it could mean a wonderful mural or a piece of furniture or just a custom sofa. But I think the ability to make things and to have all these relationships with artisans and workrooms and the ability to work with them to make a beautiful object is one of our chief skills. I've come recently to see that there are 3 organizational premises in design that I've been thinking about. One is the idea of a continuum, like being part of a river, a continuous stream, where things fall into a cadence towards a common destination. And then there's the idea of it being contained in a box, and everything in the box stays, nothing leaves. And then the other idea is finished or unfinished. Our 25th year has been particularly fantastic because we're working on a lodge in Montana, and at the same time we're working on a really important English country house that's considered one of the 50 most beautiful houses in Britain. Both the ranch and the house in Britain have decorated ceilings. The one in Britain is by Wyatt. It's neoclassical. It's a series of paterae that are painted bright pastel colors and painted grisaille murals. And at the ranch, we've decorated in a pattern of stars on a blue sky. And the pattern came from a window in the church on the lawn of the Great English House. It had a modern window. Well, a window was made in the 19th century with a pattern of stars. And so I took that pattern and then we extrapolated it for the ceiling of the ranch. So it shows the duality of working in Britain and in America. So there was this carryover of working between the two. And I think from the ranch I brought to the house in Britain, our office brought a sense of comfort. And even though it's a grand environment, that there's comfortable places to sit and the rooms are usable in a 21st century way. In the end, we love history, but it always has to be comfortable and suitable for today. We don't want to be straitjacketed into some sort of historical form that makes the room uncomfortable. We just want to use history to create a greater sense of comfort. I guess I've never really said that before, but I think there is comfort in using history if you use it in an active way with an eye to the future and the people who are going to use it.